Hi there. I am so excited for today's conversation. My name is Sara Karerat. I am the Director of Applied Research with the Center for Active Design, which is the operator of the Fitwel certification system and the Fitwel standard. And I am so pleased to be joined today by Natalie Teear over at Hudson Pacific Properties. Natalie, I would love if you could quickly introduce yourself and share a little bit about your background.
Sure. My name's Natalie Teear. I run the ESG and Innovation program at Hudson Pacific, which is a West Coast-based office and studio REIT. So we're a public real estate investment trust with about 21 million square feet of creative office and film studios, including land for development. We're vertically integrated, so we operate all of our buildings, and we also do development and redevelopment, either transforming existing buildings and doing adaptive reuse to transform them into amazing properties, or ground up development. And for the most part, our tenants and customers are media, tech, and entertainment companies, spanning from Los Angeles up to Vancouver, although we recently expanded into London.
Exciting, fantastic. And just to give a little bit of background, the reason behind having this conversation today is really on the Center for Active Design side of things. We've really been digging into what role does health play within the ESG conversation. It's top of mind for across the real estate sector, and we know that health plays a really integral role when it comes to sort of evaluating and measuring the S within the ESG kind of world. So I would love to hear a little bit from your perspective, especially as sort of one of our leading Fitwel users. What comes to mind when you think about the relationship between healthy buildings and the world of ESG?
Yeah, I mean, health is a key part of ESG, specifically the S. We actually here try to not use the phrase ESG. I know I said that in my intro, but I use that in circles of people who know what that means, but there's still a lot of normal people out there who have no idea what that acronym stands for. It feels really wonky. So what we've tried to do is build a program that's authentic to us and our culture and our business. So we refer to it as Better Blueprint, meaning we've got a vision for a better way of building and operating buildings. And the three pillars of our Better Blueprint program are sustainability, health, and equity. And health is just on equal footing with all the work we do on sustainability and all the work we do on equity. Health is so key to delivering on our promise to our employees, to our investors, to our tenants and customers. And especially now more than ever, it's a key way of delivering quality assets. And I think in this post-COVID world, it's news to no one that there's a flight to quality and in the office world. And the assets that are not delivering on quality are really challenged right now. It's a tough time. I mean, it's a tough time for everyone, frankly, but the assets that are differentiating around quality are seeing a much different market dynamic. And so we see health and sustainability and equity as the three prongs of the stool that help us deliver on quality.
That makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense, especially kind of given where we are in today's world and how much we learned during COVID about the importance of taking human health and people-centric approach into account when thinking about the spaces that we occupy. And one just follow-up question there is, how have you seen your focus on health create value across your portfolio? So you've talked about sort of sustainability, equity, and health sort of being on equal footing. How within the health space have you seen that create value for Hudson Pacific?
Well, health is such a broad term, so I think we should double click into what we mean by that. I mean, pre-COVID, frankly, we kind of took our health and safety programs for granted. And when we said health, when we talked about that as one of our three pillars of the Better Blueprint platform, we meant wellness. And we have invested a lot in amenitizing our buildings with gyms, with rooftop decks and outdoor space, gathering spaces, healthy food, programming, yoga in the lobby, spin classes, you name it. We've had a lot of those programs and amenities in place. at our properties for quite a long time. That's just been core to our strategy of delivering, winning on quality in these competitive West Coast markets. What changed, of course, during the pandemic is all of a sudden, none of that matters if you don't have health and safety locked down tight. So we leaned in hard on health and safety for, certainly the first 18 months of the pandemic. It was top of mind for everyone. We felt it was really important for us to adhere to the best standards. We were one of the first companies to get certified under the Fitwel viral response module, which Fitwel at CFAD developed and rolled out during the very early days of the pandemic, which was fantastic. And it just helped us. We were developing standard operating procedures to respond to the pandemic as CFAD was writing that certification framework. And as soon as it was ready, we raised our hands and we said, we want a set of independent third-party eyes on our SOPs to validate that what we're doing is best practice. And for us, we felt like that was really valuable. We communicated that certification and our overall approach to all of our tenants and customers, and it was really well received. I think tenants really appreciated that understanding that their landlord was tracking best practice, was taking a science-based approach, whether that was to our cleaning protocols that we used with all of our janitorial vendors or the indoor air quality measures we put in place through our in-house engineering team around ventilation and air filtration, and everything else. That there were many other items covered in that Fitwel viral response framework, but being able to communicate the details to the tenants who wanted it, but also just that seal of approval to the tenants who only wanted that level of information was really critical, and I think really helped us maintain trust and solid working relationships with our tenants throughout those really challenging times.
Yeah, that's a really great point around the convergence of sort of this increased understanding of the importance of health given COVID, and then also from the ESG perspective, an increased understanding of the value that the investment in health, broadly health and safety, but then also mitigation of chronic conditions in tandem with that can really have. And I think one thing we've seen is an increased awareness of the importance of mental health too, in sort of this phase as people are starting to enter back into the office, the value of that trust that you were speaking about. So sort of on the flip side of that, how have you seen your focus on health and safety, as well as mental health and chronic conditions really mitigate risk for your company?
I mean, certainly in those early days of the pandemic, and that story I just told, there were many questions around our liability and what our risk exposure actually might look like then and down the line. Nobody knew if landlords would be sued if someone caught COVID in a building. And so that was a major driver for us to move fast, move aggressively, and double down on the best practices and the Fitwel certification and everything else I just described. In the end, I think we felt like none of those concerns that we had flagged early in the pandemic ended up coming to fruition, which was great. I mean, that's what you want in any kind of risk management scenario, for sure. There certainly are other health and safety issues that I would say fall into a similar bucket for us as a West Coast operator. Wildfires and smoke, mostly. The smoke related to wildfires can be a major health hazard. And so we've also doubled down on indoor air quality monitoring, so that we know, we put the IAQ management procedures in place long ago. We've got, MERV 13 or higher filters at all of our properties. We've got charcoal filters that we put in place anytime there's a smoke day, that we layer on top of our existing units. So we knew that our buildings, our safety practices were working, but what we realized is we needed to be able to communicate that and prove that to tenants on a moment's notice to mitigate any kind of risk around unsafe air in our buildings. And so having IAQ monitors at our buildings has proved to be really valuable. And it's really amazing to see when the smoke levels rise. It's incredible. You can see the outdoor air just goes like this. And like in the middle of the night when our buildings are not on, the air quality concerns are up like this. And the second at 5 a.m., the second the systems turn on, it just plummets to totally safe levels for pollutant concerns like PM 2.5. So anyway, it's been fantastic. And to be honest, there are a lot of tenants who just aren't focused on that issue, but there are a handful who really are. And having the data to demonstrate to them that the safety of our buildings and that our systems really are working, and being able to get into more detailed conversations around it, we feel like has really helped us minimize risk. Absolutely. But also I think there's upside there too. It really helps us, as I said, deepen the trust, deepen the relationships with those tenants.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I can imagine seeing the impact of the building's infrastructure in protecting sort of the health and well-being and just how powerful that is. And also it's really interesting to see the convergence of sort of the environmental equity and health aspects within your blueprint, because obviously these climate change disasters are becoming so prevalent, and having those mitigation measures in place are important from sort of that environmental perspective, and then also the human health, as well as equity, depending on where a building is located, and who's exposed to these pollutants. So that's really, really great to hear. You spoke a little bit about the tenant interest in health and in the work that you all are doing. Can you share a couple examples of how tenants are really driving the demand for buildings that take their health into account, whether it's through programming or indoor air quality or design elements?
I would say the pace at which this is happening is increasing every year. Our tenants are absolutely starting to care about sustainability, health, and equity in a much more meaningful way than they were even 3 years ago. With health specifically, in any leasing conversation, this will surprise no one who's ever been involved in an office lease, but especially in the markets where we are, health and wellness in particular is always top of mind, always one of the first things that the brokers emphasize. If we've got a fitness center, it's always one of the first stops on the tour. If we've got a gym with showers and lockers and a bike room, that's always on the tour as well. Those things really help to differentiate a building and really help to, I think, differentiate and accelerate the leasing process for sure. Once a lease is signed, then it translates the business relationship changes a lot. And then we start thinking a lot about the relationship with the tenant and how to keep them happy and how to track tenant satisfaction. And we do find those amenities are important, but we also really find that the programming really is a key factor in satisfaction rates. And we've got an app at all of our multi-tenant properties, most of them, and we deliver virtual programming, fitness, wellness programming through the app. Many of our properties also now are back to offering in-person wellness programming, things like the yoga that I mentioned before. But also to your point around mental health, we do not just fitness and wellness, the traditional classes you might find at a gym. We do a lot of community building activities as well. It's amazing to see what people respond to. They love like a succulent class, like how to pot and care for your succulent. Sometimes, or some cooking classes, or, we do all sorts of events like that are really fun. A lot of things themed around holidays that I think drive connection, drive community. That's, as we all know, a key part of mental health. And so I think once the amenities are really helpful along the way, and the programming, once a tenant's in place, really helps to keep tenants engaged and happy, and it ups your chances of renewal, of course.
Yeah, and just seeing the growing importance of that as social interaction and mental health, the close relationship between the two, and needing the office and the workplace to sort of be a destination so that there is that value add making the commute and being able to engage with folks in your space. This will not come as a surprise, but the Center for Active Design has done a succulent planting team building activity in our commitment to biophilia.
So fun.
So fun. And then sort of on the flip side, from the tenant perspective, what connection do you see between investing in a healthier built environment and the success of kind of generating interest from investors, and then also in just furthering your blueprint and your effort and being able to see progress over time?
It's really hard to draw market level conclusions around that question when you have a medium-sized portfolio like ours. Like, we just don't have enough scale to have a statistically significant sample anywhere. So everything I mentioned is more anecdotal about how tenants are reacting, and then that translates into, theoretically, an investor reaction, especially with our joint venture partners who are invested in specific assets and are really interested in the anecdotes at that specific asset, like the Ferry Building in San Francisco or Bentall Center in Vancouver, which we both hold with JV partners, and both of them having like just super cool health and wellness stuff going on all the time. The interest and support, not just from us at Hudson Pacific, but from our JV partners, is fantastic for those things, because we're just seeing them work. Taking a step back at the market level, though, I mean, it's interesting. I feel like the market research around the business benefits of investing in healthy buildings is behind where similar market research on the business benefits of investing in green buildings is today. There's, I think, some really great research that's come out recently around the premiums that you get in property values and NOI and other key metrics if you've got a green building compared to a non-green building. I think it's just too early, frankly, to do that type of statistically significant analysis on healthy buildings. But I see no reason why it wouldn't trend in the same direction. As I said, health is just as core to our, to the way we deliver quality as sustainability is.
Yeah, no, and I really appreciate, as the head of our research team, those distinctions, and you making those distinctions between the anecdotal and what we're starting to see in the marketplace. And where we sort of anticipate it going. I know early research out of MIT has found the 4.4 to 7.7% premium on rental rates in healthy buildings. But that's sort of like the first of its kind of study looking at those relationships. So we're excited to hear the anecdotal pieces to motivate sort of more buildings to kind of follow Hudson Pacific's lead in committing to healthy building interventions, so that we can start to get that statistically significant those statistically significant findings in that realm. And then just to close us out, and this again, it does get at areas where it's a little bit maybe too early, but would love to hear a little bit about any relationships that you guys are tracking as far as relationships between your healthy building interventions and your commitment to health across your portfolio, and key performance indicators, whether it's tenant satisfaction in your surveys that you collect, or even just investor interest or tenant interest, quicker lease-up rates, any sort of, even if it hasn't been specifically studied, sort of the beginning indicators that you've been able to see.
Oh, we track a lot of KPIs related to our overall Better Blueprint program. Around health, we track the percentage of our portfolio that is Fitwel certified, the percentage of our portfolio that has a fitness center or a rooftop deck or bike lockers, secured bike storage. So we track a number of operational metrics like that and report those all publicly every year through our corporate responsibility report. We do track tenant satisfaction closely, and renewals and NER and a whole bunch of other core business metrics. We do not publish all of those publicly in the same way. But we'll publish key pieces, either in our CR report or in our quarterly earnings. I mean, you know this better than anyone, Sarah, like it's not possible to draw a straight line between any of those healthy building metrics and tenant satisfaction or renewal rate or NOI. There are just so many factors that go into those business metrics that isolating the relationship between the healthy building status, which even that is like can mean a whole bunch of things, but isolating the relationship between the investments we make around health and wellness and any of those business metrics, it's just, I mean, that's a massive undertaking that requires a whole research team and a much larger data set than we have. So I don't see us, frankly, investing in that type of research. I mean, it just feels like it would not be a worthwhile exercise at any point in time. But the work that you and CFAD do on this is really important because we do track those market studies. And when we feel like they're valid and resonant, we use them to inform our decision making.
Yeah, definitely. And even the elements that you are tracking and being able to benchmark over time, the percentage that are of buildings that are in a walkable location or the percentage of buildings that do have those fitness facilities or are reaching those indoor air quality metrics is so valuable to sort of not only understanding better the portfolio, but also pushing the buildings forward over time to make those incremental improvements that Fitwel is all about. Thank you so much, Natalie. This was a really, really great conversation, and I really enjoyed hearing your perspective. I really appreciate your time.
Great. Thank you, Sarah.